control that, there's just reality check. And so that's where we're at. Okay, back to just, I mean, if you want to get a sense of people's Friday schedules, I know Ron mentioned, generally after we're done here, he's doing his other thing. But if we, we're able to meet in this 9:30, 10 o'clock, I don't know, which is the perfect time for everybody to have enough time to actually do some. And so with that, we're gonna start with Kara. Let's just go down the list. We've got Senator Simon Harris.
Senate Bill 20, Environment, Cox Creek Citizens Oversight Committee membership. This bill alters the membership of the Cox Creek Citizens Oversight Committee, removing 2 members and adding 3. It also makes a technical change to reflect the current name of the Innovative Reuse Committee. There was 1 amendment and there was no opposition at the bill hearing. The amendment alters the membership of the committee as well as the committee's duties. With regards to membership, the amendment removes 5 members and adds 4. Under the amendment, the committee's duties are as follows: to monitor management of dredged material at the Cox Creek Dredged Material Containment Facility, advise the Maryland Port Administration of complaints lodged by individuals affected by the redeposit of dredged material in the Cox Creek area, provide input and feedback to the Maryland Port Administration regarding the management of dredged material at the Cox Creek Dredged Material Containment Facility, and finally, to make recommendations to the Maryland Port Administration on the potential impact that activities at the containment facility may have on nearby communities and natural resources.
Okay, Senator Simonelli, do you want to add anything? I would just say that the Port of the Administration had their own bill, but whenever we have a bill from one of our members and some department bill that's we're always going to go with a member from the committee's bill. So thus this is going to take priority over any additional just questions or conversation. Okay, so this is a consensus bill. We do have an amendment. Would you like to move that amendment? Okay, all in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All opposed? Would you like to make a motion on the bill as amended? Favorable motion as amended on Senate Bill 20. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Senate Bill 20 carries unanimously. We'll next go to Senate Bill 27. Alexis.
Senate Bill 27, Cosmetology Licensure Compact. This bill enters our state into the Cosmetology Licensure Compact, establishes the Cosmetology Licensure Compact Commission, comprised of all states participating in the compact. The bill is contingent on passage in 6 other states. No opposition presented at the hearing, and there are no amendments to the bill.
Yes, question from Senator Kagan.
Just out of curiosity, how many other states? You said 6 other states. What's the number they're up to now?
3.
3. So
Yeah.
we'd be number 4?
We would be number 4. It's pending in 5 or 6 other states. So whoever's session ends in, first.
And geographically, it's this area?
Let me
That's fine.
check.
No,
Let
that's
me
okay.
see.
I withdraw the
It's
question.
actually in the South.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Any further questions for Alexis? Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
Move favorable.
Okay, favorable Senator Augustine, second from Senator Kagan. Again, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of Senate Bill 27, straight up, it's no amendments. All raise your hand. Okay, all opposed? Okay, Senate Bill 27 carries unanimously. Next bill, Stacy, Senate Bill 33, Senator Roosevelt.
Senate Bill 33, More Opportunities for Career-Focused Students Act of 2024. This bill generally requires local school systems to assist high school students in preparing for admission to registered apprenticeship programs in a manner similar to how they assist students in preparing for admission to post-secondary institutions. There is one amendment, a co-sponsor request by Senator Hester. There was no opposition, and this committee unanimously passed the same bill last year. Senate Bill 121 of 2023.
Okay, we do have the sponsor amendment. Does anybody else want to be on this bill since we already have a sponsor amendment? Okay. Okay, raise your hand if you want to be on this bill. We've got Senator Kagan. Anybody else? Senator Lewis Young and Senator Hester's. Okay, so we'll add them onto that sponsor. Okay, Senator Augustine. That
was a low.
all in favor of that sponsorship amendment with Hester, Augustine, Kagan, and Lewis Young, raise your hand. All opposed, that sponsor amendment carries. Now we've got the bill in front of us as amended. Is there a motion? Okay, a favorable motion from the vice chair, a second from Senator Lewis Young. All in favor of the bill as amended, that is Senate Bill 33, raise your hand. All opposed, Senate Bill 33 carries unanimously. Next up, Senate Bill 205, and that is you, Stacey.
Senate Bill 205, University System of Maryland Board of Regents Membership. This bill requires the governor, the president of the Senate, and the speaker of the House of Delegates to ensure that one member of the Board of Regents of the University System of Maryland is a graduate of a historically Black college or university in the state. And those include Bowie State, Coppin State, Morgan State, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. This requirement only applies after the next vacancy on the board that occurs after July 1, 2024. There's one amendment in your packet on page 7. This is from the sponsor, Senator Hayes, and it clarifies that the member be a graduate of an HBCU in this University System of Maryland versus the one in the state. So that strikes Morgan State University. Otherwise, there was no opposition at the hearing.
Okay, any discussion? First, we have the amendment from Senator Hayes, and we've got Senator Watson.
What was the date by which you had rattled off a date? What's the date by which this has to be filled?
So it's prospective only. So the effective date of the bill is July 1, 2024. So this only applies beginning after July 1, 2024.
Well, the reason I asked, because I got a call about replacing Doug Peters on the board. And I didn't know if this was applicable to that. I guess.
Yes, if the vacancy occurs, if they fill that vacancy after July 1, 2024, then yes, it would be applicable.
But they could fill the vacancy now, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, any additional questions for Stacy? Okay. Okay, well, let's take up the Hayes amendment, that clarifying amendment. Anybody want to move that amendment? I'll move the amendment. Is there a second? From
Second.
Senator Kagan. Okay, all in favor of the Hayes amendment, the clarifying amendment, raise your hand. Okay, all opposed. Okay, the amendment carries. We've got Senate Bill 205 as amended in front of us. Does anyone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Washington.
Senator Washington, Vice Chair Kagan is the second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of Senate Bill 205 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, Senate Bill 205 as amended carries unanimously. We'll next go to Senate Bill 207 as we appear to have found a name for the snakehead fish. And Dara, why don't you tell us where things came down on that issue?
Senate Bill 207, Natural Resources, Northern Snakehead Common Name. This bill establishes the common name of a northern snakehead as the Patuxent fish. There is one amendment. There was no opposition at the bill hearing. The amendment alters the common name of the northern snakehead to be Chesapeake Chana. In addition, Senator Jennings has requested to be added as a co-sponsor.
Can you give us a little more of where that name came from?
Chana, it's CHANNA.
Yes, and there was, yeah, so who came up with that name, just so everybody knows?
So the scientific name for the northern snakehead is the Chana argus.
Right, so, I mean, we can have a debate about it, but apparently there was a lot of discussion about the science and the history and so that is the amendment to the bill. Yeah, okay, so is there, sure, we've got Senator Simon here has a question.
So I understand the Chana, but the Chesapeake, because like when you want mahi-mahi, you can go to whatever state you want, you know what it is. I understand North Carolina also has this fish. And are they going to be calling it the Chesapeake? So I don't know if.
They're gonna call the snakehead and we're gonna take all their money away.
No, I'm just saying going forward, because normally
Well, this
what they do
only
is they
take-
go federal.
Right. I think that I recall from the testimony, I mean, this isn't a federal law. I mean, so this was a state by state, and we've done this in the past. We've done something that only is used in Maryland. Apparently that's legal. Jack Bailey actually, sent some legal dissertation about that. So I think this will only be used in Maryland, and North Carolina can stay with snakehead. And Senator Hester said that, our restaurants will sell a lot more of this fish than will the restaurants in North Carolina potentially. I don't know. I don't have a great deal of to add to this name that we've come up with, but yeah.
My only point was you could go nationwide with Chana, but when you put Chesapeake on it, you may be limiting it just to Maryland, which we could do.
Yeah.
That might give us more opportunity, because people think they're eating different fish, and so they'll try it. So they'll think the same fish in North Carolina is different because it has a different name.
Okay, with all that said, does anybody want to move the amendment to use this particular name? And we can, if you want to vote against it, you can. Okay, we've got a motion, second from Senator Kagan. Okay, all in favor of the amendment renaming this fish, Dara, what is it? The Chesapeake?
Chesapeake Chana.
Okay, that's the amendment. All in favor of this name, raise your hand. Okay, all opposed? Okay, we have one abstention. Otherwise a unanimous vote, abstention from Senator Simon Ayer. Okay, now we've got the bill as amended in front of us, Senate Bill 207. Is there a motion? Yes, Dara.
Pardon me, there is also a co-sponsor amendment.
Okay, okay.
Senator Jennings.
Senator Jennings, okay,
Unfavorable.
no, okay, all in favor of the Jennings sponsorship amendment, raise your hand. All opposed, okay, we will add that on to what's in front of us. And with those two amendments, we have a favorable motion and a second. All in favor of Senate Bill 207 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, that bill, Senate Bill 207 carries unanimously. Senate Bill 255, Alexis.
Senate Bill 255, Public Safety Volunteer Company Assistance Fund alterations. This departmental bill transfers duties related to the Volunteer Company Assistance Fund from the State Military Department to the Department of Emergency Management. It's clarifying amendment to account for a departmental change. No opposition and no amendments to the bill.
Okay, no, move favorable, Senator Carozza, second from Senator Augustine. Discussion. Okay, all in favor of this bill with no amendments, clean, Senate Bill 255, all raise your hand. All opposed, Senate Bill 255 carries unanimously. Senate Bill 271, Stacy.
Mr. Chair, we need to hold this bill.
We're gonna hold that one. The next move to Senate Bill 281, Dara.
Senate Bill 281, Natural Resources, Submerged Aquatic Vegetation, Alteration or Removal Requirements. This departmental bill alters requirements related to the removal of submerged aquatic vegetation. Existing requirements for plan submission to and approval by or from the Department of Natural Resources relating to the removal of submerged aquatic vegetation are expanded to also include trimming and various conforming changes made. The prohibition against the use of chemicals to remove or eradicate submerged aquatic vegetation is also expanded to include trimming. The exemptions from the requirement for departmental approval for property and marina access are altered. First, the exemptions encompass the tidal waters of the state. Second, the exemptions allow only trimming and cutting, as opposed to harvesting, cutting, removing, or eradicating. Third, the maximum allowable width of an access strip is reduced from 60 feet to 20 feet. And finally, rather than being encouraged to do so, exempt persons must contact the department for information on best harvesting methods, must use those methods, and must provide the department with the submerged aquatic vegetation's location and removal or alteration date. There are no amendments and there was no opposition at the bill hearing.
Any questions for Dara about the bill? Okay, is there a motion? Anybody? Senate Bill 281, a favorable motion from the Vice Chair. Is there a second? Senator from Karen Lewis Young, Senator Lewis Young. Okay, and again, further discussion, seeing none. Senate Bill 281, all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, that bill carries unanimously. Next up, Senate Bill 284, Dara.
Senate Bill 284, Natural Resources, Sale, Barter, or Exchange of Mounted Specimens from Decedent's Estate. This departmental bill authorizes the sale, offer for sale, barter, or exchange of a legally acquired mounted specimen of a game bird, excluding a migratory game bird, or game mammal, if the original owner is deceased and the specimen is part of the personal property of an owner whose estate is being liquidated or distributed. There are no amendments and there was no opposition at the bill hearing.
Favorable on Senate Bill 284. Is there a second? Second, Senator Brooks. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, of Senate Bill 284, raise your hand. All opposed, Senate Bill 284 carries unanimously. Senate Bill 291.
Senate Bill 291, Persons Doing Public Business Disclosure Requirements. This departmental bill repeals provisions under the state finance and procurement article that require a business that enters into contracts, leases, or other agreements with the state totaling $200,000 or more in a calendar year to disclose to the Secretary of State specified information, including, if known, each person who has a beneficial ownership of the business. Correspondingly, the bill makes changes to Title 14 of the Election Law article, disclosure by persons doing public business, including requiring a person that does public business with the state or a local government to file a registration statement with the State Board of Elections that includes, if known, each person who has a beneficial ownership of the business entity. Essentially, the information that was in the Secretary of State's office was being used only or primarily for this purpose with the state board. Both agencies agreed it would be more efficient for it just to go to the agency that uses it. So therefore, they're sort of transferring it over to the State Board of Elections. There are no amendments and there was no opposition at the hearing.
Any questions for Stacy? Okay, is there a motion on Senate Bill 291? Motion? Okay, we got a favorable from Vice Chair Kagan, second from Senator Augustine. All in favor of Senate Bill 291, raise your hand. All opposed, Senate Bill 291 carries unanimously. Next up, Senate Bill 297, Alexis.
Senate Bill 297, State Board for Professional Engineers, Engineer Members Qualifications. This departmental bill reduces from 12 years to 5 years the professional experience requirement necessary to serve on the State Board of Engineers. There was no opposition presented. There is one amendment that was on request from the Department of Labor, which shifts that 12 years instead of down to 5, down to 10.
Okay, any questions about that amendment? It was originally as draft from 12 to 5. Now it's much more modest, 12 to 10. Senator Carozza.
Department of Labor.
Oh, they came back with that? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
so this is a Labor Department. I think as I recall at the hearing, we pushed back a little bit. That was a pretty dramatic shift. And so they came back with this modified number. Okay, any additional questions for Alexis? Okay, seeing none, let's take up that amendment from 12 to 10 as opposed to 12 to 5. All in favor of that amendment from the department, raise your hand. All opposed, that amendment carries. We've now got the bill in front of us, Senate Bill 297 as amended. Is there a motion? Okay, Senator Augustine favorable, second from Senator Watson. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, Senate Bill 297 as amended carries unanimously. Next up, Alexis, Senate Bill 309.
Senate Bill 309, Sustainable Growth Subcabinet and repeal of the Office of Smart Growth. This departmental bill repeals the Office of Smart Growth and renames the Smart Growth Subcabinet to be the Sustainable Growth Subcabinet. It adds several positions, including the Secretary of Emergency Management, to the subcabinet. It requires the Secretary of Planning to chair and to staff the subcabinet. It requires the Secretary of Housing to serve as vice chair of the subcabinet. Under the modified subcabinet definition or title, it's responsible for sustainable growth policy instead of smart growth policy. No opposition and no amendments to the bill.
Okay, any discussion? We've got a motion favorable from Senator Kagan. I'm sorry, a question.
Just for the record,
Sure.
there was opposition. There wasn't significant opposition, but there were a bunch of people who did submit. Oh, sorry, never mind. I'm
Wrong
I'm
bill.
ahead. I'm on
You're
the
on the
next
wrong,
one.
yeah, you're on the
Never
wrong
mind.
bill.
Sorry.
Okay, so that had no opposition. So
Right.
still favorable?
Still favorable.
Okay, second, Senator Brooks. Senate Bill 309, which had no opposition.
No,
No.
309 it does have. No, so I wasn't wrong. I
Oh.
thought I was ahead. 309 does have a bunch of opposition.
Okay.
Most of them are individual and concerned citizens. There's some who did submit testimony, but in large part,
Okay,
people were supporting
okay, I
this
strike
bill.
what I said then.
Okay,
Does that alter your motion?
it does not
Okay.
support the bill.
Okay, so second? Second from Senator Washington. Okay, all in favor of Senate Bill 309, raise your hand. All opposed? Is there an opposition? Okay, that bill carries unanimously. Senate Bill 309. Darrell, we're to you. Senator Brooks West bill, Senate Bill 325.
Senate Bill 325, Maryland Paint Stewardship. This bill requires a producer of architectural paint sold at retail in the state or a representative organization acting on behalf of such a producer to submit a plan for the establishment of a paint stewardship program to the Department of the Environment for approval. This bill establishes an implementation timeline and requirements, as well as annual reporting requirements for producers or representative organizations. The bill also requires the payment of plan review fees and annual report review fees to the department. Finally, the bill establishes a uniform paint stewardship assessment to cover program costs and also establishes a prohibition on the sale of architectural paint unless the producer or its representative organization is implementing an approved paint stewardship program. There are no amendments and there was no opposition testimony provided at the bill hearing.
I would note that this is substantially similar to a bill that we did pass last session. HB1 is the cross file for what it's worth. Okay, any discussion about this? There are no amendments?
There are no amendments.
Okay, any discussion, questions? Okay, yes, Senator Gallion.
So I was looking at the what's now the Maryland Retailers Alliance brought up some questions I thought were legitimate about, if you look in their testimony, number one says this program would ostensibly award state taxing authority to a private entity since it's a dangerous precedent. So that does cause concern for me. So I'll probably be voting in a negative on this.
I think you may, again, I think you had the same position last year, so that's totally legit. Any other further conversation or discussion? Okay, seeing none. Yes, Senator Brooks, did you? Okay, move favorable, second from Senator Kagan. We'll do a roll call on this one. Lemuria, make sure everybody accurately reflects their vote on this
All
one.
right, Senator Kagan,
Aye.
Senator Augustine. Senator Gallion. Senator Watson. Senator Lewis Young. Senator Brooks. Senator Carosa. Senator Hester. Senator Washington.
Yes.
Their mics are on.
Oh, that's right. I'm so sorry. Let's start over.
Let's go over so everybody, whoever's listening can.
Senator
the votes.
Kagan.
Aye.
Senator Kagan, yes. Senator Augustine.
Yes.
Senator Augustine, yes. It's Senator Gallion.
No.
Senator Gallion, no. Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator Watson, yes. Senator Lewis Young.
Yes.
Senator Lewis Young, yes. Senator Brooks.
Yes.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carosa.
No.
Senator Carosa, no. Senator Hester.
Yes.
Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington.
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. Senator Simonaire.
No.
Senator Simonaire, no. And Senator Feldman.
Yes, so the Senate Bill 325 carries 8-3. Okay, we're gonna go now on the other side
I
of
would actually like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Okay, would anybody else like to be added as co-sponsor beyond Senator Kagan?
Would you like to be on this?
Well,
If it's.
how about this? Because of that, if you can bring a sponsor amendment to the floor.
I'm not gonna-
Okay, then let's drop it. Okay, we're gonna go now to the next, behind the back page. We've got three bills, starting with Senate Bill 337. Again, if you want to bring a sponsor amendment to the floor, it'd be fine. Okay, Senate Bill 337, we're gonna go to you, Dara.
Senate Bill 337, Environment Commission on Climate Change Membership Addition. This bill adds the chair of the Public Service Commission or the chair's designee as a member of the Commission on Climate Change. There is one amendment. There was no opposition at the bill hearing. The amendment adds the Secretary of Emergency Management or the Secretary's designee as a member of the commission.
Okay, that was a Hester amendment as a result of Senator Augustine's point that we don't want even numbers. And so this actually, I think, improves the membership. Any discussion about these two additional members to this commission? Again, the Public Service Commission plus this amendment. Okay, anybody want to move that amendment? Senator Hester, second from Senator Augustine. All in favor of that amendment, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, we've got the bill as amended. Yes,
Get co-sponsor.
sure. Okay,
Wait a while.
do you want a sponsorship amendment? Okay, so we have that amendment, which we have, did we vote on this for Hester amendment yet? Okay, I think we did,
Yes.
but we're gonna go with a separate amendment offered by Senator Simonetti. He wants to be a co-sponsor. Does anybody else want to be on this Simonetti amendment sponsorship line? Okay. Okay, we've got Augustine, Watson, Kagan, Lewis Young, Brooks, Hester, Washington. I'm the sponsor of the bill, so I don't need to be on there. Okay, so all in favor of that, raise your hand. All opposed, that sponsorship amendment carries. Now we've got in front of us Senate Bill 337 as amended. Those two amendments, is there a motion?
Okay.
Favorable, Senator Kagan, Senator Augustine, second. All in favor of Senate Bill 337 with those amendments, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, Senate Bill 337 as amended carries unanimously. Next bill is Senate Bill 372. Stacy.
Senate Bill 372, Election Law, Deadline for Selection of Lieutenant Governor. This constitutional amendment modifies the time when a candidate who seeks a nomination for governor designates a candidate for lieutenant governor, requiring the designation to be made within 21 days after the primary election, rather than at the time for filing for office. The name of a lieutenant governor is listed on the primary election ballot without a candidate for lieutenant governor. There is one amendment in your packet on page 11, and this is from the sponsor of the bill, Senator Feldman, and it requires a nominee for governor to designate a candidate for lieutenant governor within 2 days after certification of the primary election.
Just to explain the amendment, so the 21 days after the primary, but you could have a recount, you could have, and that recount could take more than 21 days. So it was suggested by folks, specifically from the Board of Elections locally, that it should be tied to after there's actually been a certified winner declared rather than this number of 21 days after the primary. So that's the rationale for this amendment. This constitutional amendment, I mean, obviously I'd love to get some discussion here, but if you recall, I'll just rehash the 3 points I made. I'll start with Senator Watson's point about the team of rivals. Under the current system, which is only in place in 6 other states in the nation, when you're running for governor, you can't pick one of your opponents. You would have to persuade them to withdraw from the governor's race in order to pick them as your running mate, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense at the federal level. Whether it was Reagan picking Bush, who, or somebody finishes second in the vote, then after the primary, you can pick that person. That's, I think, my goal here is we want the largest pool of potential LG candidates and the strongest tickets on both sides. And I think this current system that again exists in 6 other states, I think diminishes it. So that's one argument. The second argument I raised has to do with you basically makes it very difficult to pick any elected official in the state of Maryland. They're basically faced with the decision of having to give up their seat in order to be in a primary with, in the case last year, of 10 other people running. And that again doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then thirdly, just politically, I've said that you don't know a year and a half before a general election who your general election primary opponent's going to be. And you'll see that this year in the presidential situation where the nominee, the person who wins the primary doesn't have to pick their running mate until the convention. So it's going to be in July of August. They're going to potentially spend a lot of time assessing the politics because you now know who your general election opponent is. So I think there's a lot of merit to this. In my opinion, this bill has passed the House of Delegates. It passed in 2022 and in 2020 and 2022, 2 times. It got stalled in this committee. I can't still figure out exactly. I wasn't on this particular committee in 2020 and 2022. So that's what I put in front of you, but it will require the voters of our state to weigh in November with a constitutional adjustment. And this would align us not just with the federal system, but with most other states. So with that, we'll open it up. I saw Senator Hester with the first question and comment or discussion.
Thank you, and I fully support the bill. I have a question about the amendment, and that is, what is the quickest that an election could be certified?
So there's a date by which it must be certified, but I don't think there's a quickest date, because there's obviously things that come along and happen, but there is a date certain by which it must be certified. I don't know it off the top
So
of my head.
here's my question. Like, let's say it was certified in like, I don't know, like record time, like 2 days.
It's not.
It's not,
So
okay.
Could I add to what Stacy said?
Yeah.
Everything Stacy said was right. If you think about, I just want to give examples, we let folks, the ballots coming from abroad. And there's as there's evidence that it has been postmarked, and there's also, as the chairman said, there's the possibility of the recount, the mail-in ballots that have been downloaded from the internet, and you guys have heard me talk about
Right.
this too much. Those have to be manually counted and stuff, so the canvas can take quite a while. So 2 days after election day is like just not going to happen.
Actually thinking of, so that's great. I just want to make sure that the lieutenant governor had enough chance to accept the nomination. So like if for some reason it was close, right, and they didn't know, like I assume there'd be conversations going on, but it's 2 days after the certification. So is there any scenario where the person who is going to be asked to be LG would only have 2 days to answer the question?
I mean, if the election is held, the primary election's held, it's not going to be certified. I mean, it's going to be weeks before it's certified, right? I mean, there's almost no scenario I can think of.
The law here in section 11401 of the election law article, it says the transmittal of the certification from the local board of canvassers is made on the second Friday after a primary or general election, or if the canvass is completed after that date within 48 hours after the completion of the canvass. So it looks like 14 days is probably the earliest.
I mean, I thought you were going to ask is 2 days after the certification, maybe a too short a period?
Is it
Well,
too
we
short?
could, I mean, we could have a discussion. I mean, I came up with the 2 day because there's weeks between the primary election and certification. So during those weeks, obviously the nominee who's just won the primary is talking and probably has had a decision. So the 2 days after certification is weeks after the actual election.
Okay.
But I mean, we could move that. It's just, that was just a number.
To point out that that's one local board. So if another one has other issues in that county and they continue to count, that does not specify after the first local board certifies, but after all of them are certified. So that would probably be with the state is certifying the election, therefore, and then they would have to do that. So
Okay, one other question Senator Gallion raised, which, we'll just get to it. So you're, let's say, a state senator, and you've won your own reelection primary. And so you've been you have the nomination. You asked the question about what happens then if you're then offered the lieutenant governor position, right, post primary. So there is a legal answer, and we have a process. So Stacy, tell the committee how that would work in the case of a potential Lieutenant Governor Gallion being offered, and he wants to accept, but he's now the nominee for the Senate district.
You
How
get
would
to
he get out of
decline.
that situation?
So essentially, there's a declination process in the law. Declination just means that you have been nominated through the process of the primary, but you file saying, I choose not to accept your nomination. And after that point, if you recall when Senator Norman passed a few years ago, within a certain period of time, then the local committee of the party of the individual who declined or passed, the process would begin for that, where they have a certain period of time in which they choose the candidate to fill that vacancy now created by your declination or by the passing of an individual. So that's the general process.
Right, so you would submit a declination, basically decline, and then subsequently the Republican Party would find a replacement to be on the ballot for your Senate spot.
That was me.
Yeah.
So you do the declination, and then the Central Committee gets to pick the nominee. So you could have a situation where, the primary for that state Senate seat, the voters overwhelmingly turn down whoever loses that election, but then the party could turn right around and say, well, you know what, they ran, so
But that's true now if somebody
Right.
dies after the primary
Yeah.
or some other issue happens after, I mean, that's current, I mean, that's an issue now.
Right. But now though, we're seeing that happen almost exclusively after the election where, you know, you might get a rare case like you mentioned with Senator Norman. But most times, you know, a new governor brings in some legislators into their cabinet. And then there's the vacancy, and we've debated bills here, you know, for several years about having special elections, stuff like that. So okay, I understand what you're saying.
We have Senate Bill 29 that we'll be discussing at some point about special elections, and that's what would govern.
Yeah, again, this is a, you know, change of the Constitution. You know, we haven't changed it since, again, prior to 1970, for the prior 100 years, there was no lieutenant governor in Maryland. We selected a governor like we do treasurer, you know, with a joint session of the legislature. So this is, you know, this is something significant. So I don't take it lightly, which is why, you know, obviously. Okay, with that all said, we have this one amendment, which is now tied to a certain number of days after the certification of the result, in which time the nominee gubernatorial candidate would be able to pick his lieutenant or her lieutenant governor. So is there a motion on that amendment?
Favorable.
Okay, we have a favorable motion on that amendment. Is there a second? Second from Senator Washington. Okay, all in favor of that one amendment, raise your hand. Okay, all opposed. Okay, we have the bill in front of us, piece of legislation, Senate Bill 372 as amended with that amendment. Is there any motion? Okay, I have a favorable motion from Vice Chair Kagan. Is there a second from Senator Augustine? Okay, let's do a roll call. This is, you know, a constitutional change, and we'll go around the horn on this one.
Senator Kagan.
Aye.
Senator Kagan, yes. Senator Augustine. Senator Augustine, yes. Senator Gallion.
Just to explain my vote here. I understand kind of line up with the federal, and I see the value in that. It's a tough vote, but I'm going to vote no. But I'm going to continue to kind of look at this and potentially on the floor that could change. But I do see the merit of the bill, but I also see the other side where, you know, some folks from the very beginning want to see what that team's going to look like and vote on that, you know, governor and lieutenant governor from the primary on. So thank you.
All right, Senator Gallion is a no. Senator Watson. Senator Watson, yes. Senator Lewis Young.
Yes.
Senator Lewis Young, yes. Senator Brooks. Yeah. Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carozza.
Yes.
Senator Carozza, yes. Senator Hester.
Yes.
Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington.
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. Senator Simonaire.
Yes.
Senator Simonaire, yes. And Senator Feldman.
Okay, yes, that bill as amended carries 10-1. Next up, Senate Bill 444, Senator Zucker.
Senate Bill 444, Maryland Longitudinal Data System Center, Student Information, United States Census Bureau. This bill that you heard yesterday authorizes the governing board of the Maryland Longitudinal Data System Center to send student information to the U.S. Census Bureau. To give you the extra context, it's to participate in what's called the Post-Secondary Employment Outcomes Project. A college or university must provide student transcript level data to the U.S. Census Bureau. And this project is about developing experimental tabulations developed by researchers to provide data on earnings and employment outcomes for college and university graduates by degree level, degree major, and post-secondary institution. Currently, the MLDS is not authorized to provide this data outside of the state, and this allows them to only provide it to the U.S. Census Bureau. There are no amendments and there's no opposition at the hearing.
Okay, no amendments, no opposition. Discussion, questions for Stacy? Okay, is there a motion? Okay, Vice Chair Kagan's in favorable motion. Second? Senator Washington? Okay, all in favor of Senate Bill 444, raise your hand. All opposed? That bill carries unanimously. Senate Bill 444. Let's go now. We have one bill over on a separate voting list. Hopefully you have voting list number 6, Senate Bill 115 from Vice Chair Kagan. And we're going to go to you, Stacy. This is an emergency piece of legislation.
Okay, Senate Bill 115, Election Law Recounts Procedures. This looks familiar because this committee did vote it last week, but turns out there was an amendment to this. I'll re-describe as this emergency bill requires a petitioner for a recount to select the method for conducting the recount from among specified methods. The bill also requires a local board of elections to 1, preserve and store certain voter verifiable paper records together with their corresponding duplicate ballots, and 2, in a manual recount, count the duplicate ballot after review of a voter verifiable paper record. In your packet, there is a sponsor amendment from Senator Kagan, and this amendment clarifies that in a manual recount, the local board must count the voter verifiable ballot, not the duplicate ballot, after review, and 2, in an automated recount, the local board must count either the voter verifiable ballot or the duplicate ballot under specified circumstances.
Do you want to have the amendment on the table before I
Okay,
describe
yes.
it? Or do you
Okay,
wanna-
is there a
do you want
motion
on the
to
floor?
favorable on the amendment? Is there?
I'll move favorable on
Okay,
the
Senator
amendment.
Kagan moves the amendment, Senator Hester seconds. Discussion. You
Yeah,
want to
so
add?
I just want to, so colleagues, forgive me, this is me getting completely in the weeds, but rather than having a bill that's like 98% right, perfect, let's just really do it right. So you may remember if you get an internet delivered ballot and you print it out at home, it looks kind of like this. And then when it comes to the local board of elections, it has to be manually duplicated by bipartisan teams to this, because this paper, this length, this heft, these markings and all that is what can go through the scanner to be marked. In the case of a recount, we really want it to be precise. We want these 2 pieces of paper for the Joe Jones ballot to be kept together. So if there's a recount, and it's a manual recount, we're gonna look at this one and we're gonna count this one if it's a manual one. If it's an automatic recount and everything's gonna be put back through the scanner, we wanna look at the manual one in conjunction with the duplicated one to make sure there's not an error. If there's any difference, if there's any confusion, it gets adjudicated by the local board of elections. But then once they say, yep, the voter intent was this one and it's reflected accurately, then it goes back through the scanner in the recount, in a scanner recount. So it's a really technical thing, but it does make the bill rock solid. So that's the definition of the amendment. That's what the amendment does. I'm happy to try to explain it further if that wasn't clear enough.
Okay, we got Senator Carrozza, then Senator Gallion.
Thank you. That was a good explanation. I'm just want to ask a process question.
Yeah.
Did we passed this bill last week and then it went to the floor and then and it was sent
Thank
back,
you.
or how does this work?
Thank you. You know what? That's totally right. So this committee passed the bill unanimously without an amendment. I asked Stacy to hold the bill because it was an oops, we hadn't gotten the amendment back, blah, blah, blah. And so maybe, Mr. Chairman, we really should reconsider the vote by which
We can.
the bill was
I mean,
approved.
we could do that, although we didn't formally send the bill out of the committee and refer it to the floor. So as a technical, we kind of grabbed it back before, normally if you would send it to the floor, then we would have to do the procedure that Vice
Either
Chair
way,
outlined.
just to make it
Since
clear.
we did take the vote, but before sending it formally from this committee, we caught the mistake. So I think it's actually probably okay to revote it in effect as opposed to redoing.
Either
I'm,
way.
I was
You
the
wanna
parliament.
suggest-
I mean, we could, yeah.
It said
Yeah.
we passed it and then where to go and then
Right.
is this?
If it was actually
vote
on the floor, I think, we would have to move to recommit the bill back to the committee and that
Okay.
kind of thing. But since it never formally reached the floor, I think we can just,
So what are we-
use this
so
to
what are we
super-
voting on today?
well, right now, we are adding this one amendment, so we're gonna take a vote on the amendment and then we will basically revote the bill
Okay,
with
so
this new
that's- that- I
amendment
just
and
wanna
then everybody.
understand the
It's
process.
a great
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Croza.
Yeah.
Same
She
thing.
Pretty much asked the same question.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, well, that's my, assessment. If we take the bill to the floor and somebody points out that we need to come back here and do something, we can do that. But I think for now, I think that's unlikely. So right now, we just have this amendment and we have a motion and a second on the amendment. Okay, any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, so all in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Okay, that amendment carries unanimously, and now we have a
On the bill.
motion on
as
the bill
amended.
as amended favorable. Is there a second? Okay, we've got a second from Senator Augustine. So now we have in front of us this piece of legislation, Senate Bill 115 as amended in front of us, and we will,
And it is an emergency bill.
and it is an emergency
Just to be
bill.
clear, this would be law if this would apply this year in this year's primary elections, and that's an emergency bill.
And to avoid any possible confusion, we're going to do a roll call.
Right.
Just so everybody knows what we did and how we voted and that kind of thing. Okay, so Lemuria, why don't you take it from there?
All right, Senator Kagan?
Aye.
Senator Kagan, yes. Senator Augustine? Senator Augustine, yes. Senator Gallion? Senator Gallion, yes. Senator Watson? Senator Watson, yes. Senator Lewis Young? Senator Lewis Young, yes. Senator Brooks? Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carozza? Senator Carozza, yes. Senator Hester? Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington? Senator Washington, yes. Senator Simoneer? Senator Simoneer, yes. And Senator Feldman?
Okay, yes, so that bill as amended, Senate Bill 115, again, as amended carries unanimously. That, to my count, means we just passed 16 bills in this voting session. And with that, our work for the week is complete. And again, keep open next Friday and we'll keep you posted. Not tomorrow, free tomorrow, but next Friday. We'll be on the floor tomorrow, but first for committee. Any other kind of just logistics process, any other anything else anybody wants to bring up? Okay, seeing none, meetings here, adjourned.